young people still feel excluded from the mainstream economy of our country. And I've seen Tony here. Tony is the CEO of Young Parliamentarians Association, an organization we started in 2013, which brought together young members of parliament below the age of 35 then, when we were 50 of us. Proud of the work that was done, but there's still much more to be done. So we have the legislation, we have the laws, but really are these institutions representative, and do our people feel that they engage? Kenya is a young country, Africa is a young continent. Our median age is 19.8 years. The young people are the majority. The young people of Kenya have shown, I'm a millennial, the millennials and the Gen Zs, that they're not begging to be heard. They're not begging for a place on the table. If they're not on the table, there shall be no table. If they're not on the table, there'll be no table. I kept saying that if you're not on the negotiating table, you're on the menu. This generation has refused. There's no menu for anyone if they're not part of that. And I think we should all be jolted to understand that there must be meaningful participation, not token participation. There must be radical transparency, not just surface transparency or shows of inclusion. They will not be taken for a ride. I believe that. Of course, a major issue is employment, as I go to wind up. The average young person in our country is well educated, deserving an opportunity. I'm proud that in the last 2 years as governor, I've been able to employ 5,000 young people, but that is not enough. That is just, scratching the surface. Government does not exist to employ, but to create the environment through which the young people themselves and the private sector can thrive and employ and create these opportunities and jobs. Institutions don't talk to institutions. It's people who talk to people. We must listen. We must have meaningful discussions with our young people. I know many Nairobians and Kenyans in the last 2 months asked, Governor, you're quiet. And I said, sometimes it's time to listen. It's time to understand. Many times leaders are so quick to jump and offer solutions, yet you don't get the point. I think there is honor in listening, there is dignity in understanding, and there's respect in meaningful engagement. We continue to invest in facilities, and I'm happy to hear what my brother Governor Timami is doing in Lamu, sports facilities, social halls, to give young people spaces to come together and grow their talent. But now we're co-creating with them. We've changed our model. We don't give solutions already prepared to our young people. They know what they want, I love our one-stop youth center in the CBD, and a lot of creativity is emanating from that. And for now, we're co-creating with our young people. How do we sort out the water issues in our city? How do we solve solid waste management? How do we work on our road network, our transit? The days of prepared and curated solutions being forced down the throats of our youth are over. And if any leader wants to survive, they must understand that. One of the things I did when I got into office, and our administration we did, was to ban a very archaic rule that was there in Nairobi for decades, that you couldn't take photos in the CBD. It was a very stupid rule. Today, if you walk in the streets of Nairobi on a Saturday or on a Sunday, you'll see hundreds of young people with their cameras, with their video cameras, with their phones, with umbrellas that have lights, doing work, earning a living through their creativity. It didn't cost us money. It just needed us to listen to them. Many today can earn a livelihood from their talent. Next week, we'll be opening Nairobi's Innovation Week, an initiative that primarily brings together various players in the tech sector and young people. In its second year, it's an important platform as we navigate the rapidly evolving landscape of technology and co-creation of solutions in this urban setting. I believe in the value of investing in our young people. I still consider myself young. In our country, if you're below the age of 60, you're young. You're a young politician. You're very young. So when I see what we call the young tax saying they're young, I think politically I'm like a fetus, So I believe in the value of investing in our young people, in empowering them more, in giving them opportunities. For now, it remains only to say, my fellow young people, I believe in you, the young people of Africa, the young people of Kenya, the young people of Nairobi. I believe in your diligence, in your intelligence, in your patriotism. I know you love our continent. I know you love your countries, and that you want to make something out of yourselves. And I promise, together with many of my colleagues, that we will do everything in our power to make those dreams come true. May God bless you. I wish you a nice time in Nairobi. For those who are visiting, welcome to the green city in the sun. Welcome to the city that doesn't sleep. Please enjoy the city of Nairobi. Don't just stay in the UN complex. Nairobi has a lot to show and to offer. First, it's the only capital in the world where you can be looking at animals in their natural, untouched, unspoiled habitat. And in the background, you have the skyline of a modern capital. And that's the Nairobi National Park. Secondly, it is in Kenya. For those who are not from Kenya, it is in Kenya that the earliest fossils of humankind were found, in Turkana. So it is everyone's home. So welcome back home. Please take time to enjoy the sights and sounds of Nairobi and of our country. God bless all of you.
Thank you, Governor Johnson Sakaja, Nairobi City County. Much appreciated for your insightful thoughts. And I bet you're not 40 plus yet.
No, I'm 39.
So the current Senegalese president is way above you, and he was given the vote to be the president. So there is hope. If you young Kenyans can register, I think the mathematics favors, and the change can be inevitably very predictable as we head to the elections in 2027. Before I call onto the stage Dr. Asha Mohammed, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to appreciate the presence of His Excellency, the former Prime Minister of Norway and the founder of the Oslo Center, His Excellency Charles Magna Bondevik, who is with us here. Please, if you can be standing. Yes, you founded an organization that has immense democratic credentials and championed for the same across the globe, and later we'll be hearing from you in the first panel. Dr. Asha Mohammed is the permanent representative of the IFRC to the African Union in Ethiopia. She formerly served as the Secretary General of the Kenya Red Cross and has vast experience in humanitarian affairs and has been a champion of the same. Daktari, welcome.
Thank you very much, Ayub. I don't know why they always assume the speakers are as tall as Governor Sakaja and Governor Timang, so thanks for the adjustment. I will ask that I will take a few more minutes if that happens, because I am the only woman in this panel. So I will be speaking on my behalf and on behalf of another woman who should have been on the panel. And I think by default there was an empty chair there. I don't think it was a design, but that meant the gods were speaking that another woman should have been sitting there. But on a light touch. His Excellency, Mr. Bondevik, Oslo Center founder and former Prime Minister of Norway, His Excellency Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, former Vice President of Kenya, Excellencies, Governors, Excellencies, Ambassadors, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Honorable Members of Parliament, the Executive Chairman of Oslo Center, I call him Finn, a very good friend and a partner in crime, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and vibrant youth from across Africa, all protocols observed. Good morning. Good morning. It is indeed an honor to be here today at the Africa Youth Forum hosted by the Oslo Center. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the Center and its Executive Chairman for this invitation. Your continued commitment to democratization and citizen engagement in Africa is commendable and crucial for all our collective progress. For those who don't know, IFRC stands for the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, with a membership of 191 national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies globally. So I will be using IFRC in short because it's a very long name. Today's theme, Breaking Barriers Through Intergenerational Dialogue, could not be more timely or significant. We are at a pivotal moment in history where the voices of young people are more crucial than ever in shaping a sustainable future for not only our continent but the world at large. Additionally, this forum takes place as we prepare to commemorate the World Humanitarian Day on Monday, 19th August. This year's theme is Act for Humanity, Ending Violence Against Humanitarian Workers. We have continued to witness the killings of civilians and humanitarian workers in line of duty. Since the beginning of this year, the IFRC has lost staff and volunteers in several countries. In Sudan, for example, a volunteer was killed recently while giving first aid to an injured civilian. Majority of those killed have been young people who have dedicated themselves to saving the lives of their brothers and sisters, even while knowing that means putting their lives at risk. Young people are pillars of the IFRC network, and globally we have more than 16 million volunteers. Volunteers are our strength, they are what defines us, and they help make the world a safer and more peaceful place every single day. The majority of these volunteers are young people. In Africa alone, 80% of our volunteers are young people, and I have seen a number of them here, Ali and others, who have grown through the Red Cross system. As IFRC, we also partner with the Office of the African Union Youth Envoy in mobilizing and facilitating the contribution of Africa's young people to the Africa Union 2063 agenda, the Africa we want, an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa. The Red Cross and Red Crescent Network places youth at the core of its mission and mandate, involving them as leaders, volunteers, and members of the affected communities. On leadership and governance, our network is benefiting from engaging young people at all levels of governance and management through platforms and mechanisms such as global, regional, and sub-regional networks. These platforms provide statutory means for youth to contribute to our movement's work. Regionally in Africa, we have the IFRC Africa Youth Network, which advocates for youth involvement and participation towards achieving continental priorities. To the network's health initiatives, especially linking to enhancing access to healthcare and promoting public health. As part of Africa CDC's Saving Lives and Livelihoods initiative in partnership with MasterCard Foundation, the Red Cross Red Crescent Network reached last year 234 million people across 32 countries in Africa through risk communication and community engagement for COVID-19 vaccination uptake. This achievement was only possible through engaging young people across the continent. Over the last few years, we have been working on the Global Youth Mobilization Initiative of the Big Six youth-serving, youth-involving organizations established in 2020, invested more than $5 million to support 654 youth-led projects, which engaged more than 600,000 young people and reached over 3.6 million people in communities in more than 125 countries. Together with UNFPA, the IFRC co-chairs the Global Compact for Young People in Humanitarian Action. Gone are the days when we saw the dream that youth represent the future. They are the present now. They bring fresh perspectives, innovative solutions, and a passion for change that is indispensable for sustainable development. We are all beneficiaries of the transformation that has formed the new world order, from digital media expansion to artificial intelligence and now moving into robotics. For these voices and ideas to be more impactful, we must create platforms that allow for constructive dialogue, meaningful engagement, and comfortable spaces for innovation. The African youth have significantly contributed to the humanitarian sector, showcasing their leadership, innovation, and resilience in addressing complex challenges across the continent. Their involvement spans various areas, including disaster response, health, education, and social justice, making them indispensable actors in the humanitarian landscape. African youth have been at the forefront of disaster response initiatives, particularly in regions affected by conflicts, natural disasters, and epidemics. Through volunteerism, grassroots mobilization, and the use of digital platforms, young people have played a crucial role in providing immediate relief and long-term recovery support to affected communities. For instance, during the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, youth volunteers and organizations were instrumental in spreading awareness, providing medical assistance, and supporting quarantine measures. Their efforts were pivotal in curbing the spread of the virus and aiding the recovery of affected regions. As leaders, young people have provided effective leadership in the mobilization and coordination of humanitarian efforts. Young Africans have also made substantial contributions to health and education, advocating for better access to services and resources for marginalized communities. Through campaigns, youth-led NGOs, and community projects, they have addressed issues such as mental health, HIV and AIDS, maternal health, and the need for quality education. In countries like Kenya and South Africa, youth-driven initiatives have led to the establishment of community health programs and educational scholarships that have positively impacted the life of thousands of people. The younger generation in Africa is leveraging technology to enhance humanitarian efforts, from developing mobile apps for disaster management to using social media for awareness campaigns and timely disaster alerts. Projects like Ushahidi, a crowdsourcing platform developed in Kenya, have revolutionized the way information is collected and disseminated during crisis, enabling faster and more effective responses. The Kenya Records mobilizes young people through hackathons to find groundbreaking solutions for complex humanitarian challenges. Many young Africans are deeply involved in environmental conservation and climate change advocacy. They recognize the link between environmental degradation and humanitarian crises such as food insecurity and displacement. Youth-led organizations and movements across the continent are working tirelessly to promote sustainable practices, reforestation, and the protection of natural resources, ensuring a better future for their communities and the world at large. Young people from universities also provide expertise in the design and delivery of key humanitarian programs. Generally, the contributions of African youth to the humanitarian sector are vast and varied. Their energy, creativity, and commitment to social good have made them key players in addressing some of the continent's most pressing challenges. As we move forward, it is essential to continue supporting and empowering these young leaders, recognizing that their efforts are critical to building a more just, resilient, and sustainable Africa. As we look to the future, we must stop seeing young people as only victims of crisis and begin to see and appreciate them as critical players in the design and execution of humanitarian action. So what more can youth do? Embrace the leadership of the humanitarian system and actions. More and more women and young people are disproportionately being impacted by crisis, not only in Africa but globally. Yet, how many women and young people are in leadership in the humanitarian system? Who is representing them? How many decisions being reached answer to their needs? Even in peace negotiations, in conflict situations, where are the young people? Clearly, they do not have seats at the table. I urge all of us here today to work together in breaking these barriers. Let us foster environments where young people can thrive as active participants in humanitarian efforts. Let us ensure that youth are not just heard, but are also empowered to lead. It is our collective responsibility to mentor, guide, and support them. Young people should also lead and support development of more effective and agile preparedness and response systems. Today, youth are contributing more to response action. We need them to participate more in preparedness as well, because that is what will greatly reduce the impact of disasters on affected people. Young people must participate in the review of the humanitarian system as a whole and make it something that can actually answer the needs of affected people. So as we move forward, let us remember that youth are not just the leaders of tomorrow, they are the leaders of today. Their insights, energy, and creativity are invaluable assets that we must harness to drive positive change. The transformation we seek will not come from a single effort or a lone voice. It will come from our collective actions, driven by the passion and commitment of young people. The future of Africa and indeed the world lies in the hands of our young people. Let us support them, invest in them, and most importantly, trust them to lead us towards a brighter and more equitable future. I look forward to the discussions and insights that will emerge from this forum, and together let us work towards a future where every young voice is heard and valued. As the former US President Franklin Roosevelt said, we cannot always build a future for the youth, but we can always build our youth for the future. Thank you for listening, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Dr. Asha Mohammed, and you are within time. Much appreciated for your time management. So again, before I call on to the stage our next speaker, to again re-emphasize the message, please let's use the hashtag. It's there displayed, Youth Forum on all social media platforms. It's also live streamed on Facebook and also on X, formerly Twitter. We want to hear your feedback. It's not going to be a conversation that comes from one end. It ought to be a conversation with you as well, to develop that channel so that we can hear your feedback as well. Next up is His Excellency Dr. Senior Counsel Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, our former Vice President and the leader of the Wiper Party, onto the stage. Karibu.
A very warm Nairobi good morning. Excellency, former Prime Minister of Norway, I'm so happy to see you again. The founder of Oslo Center. I've also seen my good friend Tora, Brian Tora. You gave him to us, and he's been wonderful in shaping our democratic practice in this country. So the Oslo Center and Norway in particular have been wonderful partners in the journey that we as Africa, and more particularly as Kenya, have undertaken in our democratic transformation. So it's so good to see you again in Nairobi. I have a problem with pronouncing Norwegian names because they're not easy, including that of Finn, executive chair of the Oslo Center. I also want to recognize my fellow panelists here, Governors Timami of Lamu and Sakaja of Nairobi, and our sister Dr. Asha, who has been so elaborate in identifying the role of the youth. Allow me then to extend my greetings to all of you, Excellencies, as well as the Secretary General of Muslim World League, who may not be here. He's been very kind to also co-sponsor this event. Distinguished visitors, fellow leaders and elders, and our youth present today at this place, which is also very significant, the only UN headquarters in the whole of the third world. Whenever I come to Gigiri, I remember the long journey of the late Secretary General Kofi Annan had to go out of his way to make Nairobi a UN headquarters at the same level as New York and Austria and Geneva, then Nairobi. So it's wonderful to be back at UN headquarters in Gigiri. It's also both an honor and a joy to be here today to formally start this important conference, which is being co-hosted, as I said, by the Oslo Center and the Muslim World League. I want to express my heartfelt appreciation to the Secretary General, the Executive Chairman of Oslo Center, and the Country Director of Oslo Center in Kenya and Somalia, on Phoebe Mungai. She's been wonderful in also helping political parties in our country to get along. Ladies and gentlemen, the subject of breaking barriers through intergenerational dialogue is so timely because the youth in Kenya have actually shown the way. They've literally broken the barriers. And I'll elaborate and illustrate that example of the Kenyan youth. In Africa's current socioeconomic and political landscape, the theme of breaking barriers through intergenerational dialogue is equally vital. That this conversation is taking place in Nairobi, as I said, is absolutely, and as it turns out, very timely. Africa's youth population is one of our most valuable assets. Youth are more than simply tomorrow's leaders. We've heard our sister Dr. Asha say, the leaders of today. They offer new viewpoints, unlimited energy, tribeless structures, and a desire to innovate, which may propel our continent ahead. However, this promise will only be fulfilled if we actively engage in meaningful intergenerational discourse. Intergenerational discussion facilitates exchange of ideas, wisdom, and experiences between young and the elders. This reciprocal learning process has a potential to increase understanding, lessen generational conflicts, and establish a unified front as we solve our continent's difficulties. This type of discourse allows us to overcome gaps, share our rich past, and collaborate on sustainable development. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, many of you, whether you live in Kenya or follow from abroad, are aware of the Gen Z and millennial-led nationwide rallies, which have permanently transformed the political discussion in Kenya, in my opinion, for the better. Disenchanted and alienated by the political leaders, Kenyan Gen Zs and millennials use their constitutional rights, notably under Articles 1 and Article 37 of our country's Constitution 2010, and organize weekly non-violent rallies via social media platforms. Amazingly, at some of those forums, they would call political rallies, which would record upwards of 800,000 in attendance. I've been, as Governor Sakaja said, in political leadership, but I can't remember any time we could get together a rally in excess of 800,000. But our youth were able to do that. Sadly, state-sanctioned brutality greeted these non-violent rallies against a harsh Finance Bill 2024, bad governance, rampant corruption, outrageous affluence, and an executive in flight mode. Kenyans will understand what I mean by that. Hundreds more were injured by acts of police brutality, and over 50 young Kenyans lost their lives as a result of police gunshots. Many others, including 4 state members, have been singled out for kidnapping and hijacking, and I'm afraid this practice seemingly continues. In addition to the peaceful Mandamano protests of previous year, during which the security agencies killed over 75 innocent people and injured hundreds more, we calculate that over 300 young Kenyans have lost their lives, especially in light of the unclaimed bodies in some of our city morgues, because they dared to engage in dialogue, because they dared to break this intergenerational barrier. Now, the Kenyan youth did not opt for the streets because it was an option. They expressed their reservations and dissatisfaction through the public participation process at the county and national levels. Kenyans wrote to their representatives and signed online petitions. Be they young, middle class, or elderly, Kenyans encountered a plethora of silence and ambivalence. They were lectured down from the rooftops of their luxury four-wheel drive vehicles that they did not know what they were asking for, and that this regime knew what they were doing. In other words, until many years later, the only conversation any Kenyan could have, whether it be intergenerational or not, was at the voting booth. But Kenyans used to say, no, the game has changed. That was a message from our colleagues in the ruling coalition. We call them Kenya Kwanza. They said simply wait. If you have anything to do, to say, wait until 2027. Our young Kenyans, despite and in spite of such carelessness, chose the constitutionally protected role of peaceful picketing and demonstrations because it was their only alternative. One may wonder, did this path accomplish any real and long-lasting change? Yes, unequivocally, yes, ladies and gentlemen. The whole cabinet was disbanded. The Inspector General of Kenya Police Services tendered his resignation. The government spokesperson apologized unreservedly for public officials' extravagant and wanton spending and opulence. The President of Kenya was grounded in Nairobi for the first time since taking office. At some stage, he was even barricaded in the State House, Nairobi, actually, and compelled to re-examine the functioning of his administration. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Kenya's Gen Z, we call them Generation Z, has made significant contribution to the country's political trajectory by breaking down barriers via constitutional discussion, for which our nation remains truly grateful going to the future. Kenya Gen Z has also influenced several African movements. It is no longer business as usual anywhere in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, one of the primary goals of this conference is to investigate how governments may actively engage youth in development processes. Token gestures are insufficient. That time has indeed gone by. Here in Kenya, the Gen Zs, the millennials, and I heard Governor Osakaja say he's a millennial, and Kenyans at large say tokenism is insufficient, indeed is unacceptable. Youth participation must be meaningful and impactful. Any government worth its salt should abandon the habit of deception and falsehoods to the youth. If one's manifesto declares unequivocally that it is youth-driven and directed, the assumption and presumption is that once elected, the representatives would be youth-aligned and focused. Anything less, the Gen Zs are proven, is a betrayal of the hopes and aspirations of the electorate. We have to get beyond the idea that young people are just hoodlums and cogs at political events, only sometimes to provide security. This indignity must surely end. We require a new deal that at its critical heart seeks and sees the youth as equal stakeholders who have a crucial role in shaping our nation's future, building a shared prosperity that will be the envy of even our more developed partners. But conversation by itself, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I submit, is insufficient. We also need to be dedicated to locating and removing the obstacles standing in the way of advancement. These obstacles might have the origins in societal conventions, cultural standards, or even antiquated laws that no longer meet our requirements. Through raising awareness of these problems and having constructive conversations about them, we may develop solutions that work for all future generations. As we remove these obstacles, we open the door to a more equal and more inclusive society where everyone, regardless of age, faith, can contribute to the advancement of our country and our continent. Finally, Excellency, require mentoring, and I think the time for that is now, and I do not think they are averse to suggestions on mentoring, because they also require and be able to dig deep into the expertise that some of the elders will have gone through. The knowledge of elders, paired with the ingenuity of the youth, can result in intergenerational development that benefits the entire continent and indeed our respective African countries. Elders may offer guidance, mentorship, as I said, and a detailed understanding of our cultural as well as our historical context, while young people can contribute new ideas, technological breakthroughs, and a dynamic approach to problem solving. This collaboration should be promoted and institutionalized so that it becomes an integral part of our development plan. We must ask ourselves, how can we create opportunities for frequent engagement between youth and elders? How can we ensure that our engagement yields real outcomes that propel our countries forward? These are some of the questions, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, that I think will require addressing even at this forum. And I want to thank you, I want to take this opportunity to thank you and wish this conference great success, because anything comes to Nairobi from the continent is well appreciated. And in fact, even in terms of climate change conversations, a lot of things happen in the capital city of Nairobi, and therefore it's our privilege always to receive our African brothers, and particularly at this particular time, the youth from our continent. May God bless our own country here and bless the African continent. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, Senior Counsel, for your remarks here, which marks the end of the keynote speech by the speakers who are sitting behind me, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Diplomatic Corps, and which to just give an assessment of what they had spoken about, how key the voices of the youth are in Kenya and also across the continent, given the growing number of young Africans who are yearning for good governance, constitutionalism, rule of law, and their engagement in the government had to withdraw it because of the pressure. And the Oslo Center, founded based on democracy and good governance, is championing for the same across the world. And this congregation therefore brings together the voices, not to fight any political party or entity or organization, but to deepen our democratic credentials in coming together, and those of the countries in the region and across the continent and around the world. So I'll allow the Excellencies to take back their seats with respect. Governor Timami, Governor Sakaja, Dr. Asha Mohammed, and Dr. Kalonzo Musyoka, as I will be shortly queuing in a short documentary of 10 minutes. A round of applause for them, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you for your remarks, and we'll shortly be having the documentary once they get back to their seats. So all your spaces are marked for the sitting arrangements, ladies and gentlemen. In the meantime, you can keep on interacting on the social media platforms. The hashtag is provided. And all social media platforms, live streaming on X, formerly Twitter, on Facebook, and also on Instagram, where we'll later have your feedback here as our able speakers take back their seats. Are we ready with the documentary? Okay. So I think now we are good to go. So it's a 10-minute documentary, and this is emphasizing on the integration of young voices as change agents to meaningful participation in the respective governance models across the continent and the world. Let's turn our attention to the major screens behind me. Thank you. And later I'll be announcing the way forward.